Hi, I'm Kevin Collier. Today I want to go over some technical sound design I recently did in an Unreal sample project called Polar Sci-Fi Facility. This simple project's currently free. I got it for free as part of Epic's monthly freebies a few months ago. It may or may not be free now. Anyways, my main goal with the sound design project was to go over some of the features that Unreal 5.3 offers that weren't really offered beforehand. This mostly focused on things like spawning a VFX or moving objects in the world based on parameters given from sound effects in Metasounds. I'll dive into that in a second. I also took this as an opportunity to mess around with the Soundscape plugin that Epic has recently added into Unreal 5. The Soundscape plugin spawns sounds around the player using gameplay tags. These gameplay tags can be spawned by using things like collisions or an event tick based off of how close a player is to a specific object. For this project, I ran off of collision boxes, but I'll get into that in a second as well. Let's go ahead and play, see what it sounds like a little bit in the world. All right. So that is a small little showcase of the sound design in this game or in the sample project. So let's go over some of the things that I did for this project. First, let's dive into the audio that triggers virtual effects in the world. So I made this blueprint. Um, what we're doing is we're getting a particle, we're getting the parameter name in the particle. This is not using the new particle system, Niagara, I believe it's called. This is using the older Cascade system just because this project is built from Unreal 4, so it's not built with the new system in mind. Going off of that, I am using this watch output node, which we are getting from the Metasound output subsystem. This lets me do things when something happens in the Metasound. So if I open up the Metasound here, we can see if I hit play, we get this kind of low hum along with this timed spark. The main logic we're setting to the blueprint here is this sparks flying bool. Every time that's triggered, we play a VFX. This VFX is also tied to a timeline that fades it out. So right when the spark hits in the sound, a spark pops up from the VFX and then fades out so we don't get a continued spark over time. Pretty cool. Makes it so we're able to see those sparks according to what they sound like. We're able to do all of that random timing just in the meta sound, which is really, really interesting. Next, I created a blueprint that moves objects in the world based on a float parameter or bool given from a metasound. So for this metasound, I'm using this moving door metasound source. We hit play and we have this loop of wind. We occasionally get this metal grind, followed by a squeak. This float parameter here, being triggered from this ADSR envelope, is named float string. This is being sent back over into this blueprint. We're getting a float from there, float from Metasound, and then down here we're doing a bunch of logic things like saying, where do I want the door to rotate to in the world? I'm giving it random spaces in a range, so it's not always rotating to the same place. This could also be used with moving an object up and down, left or right. For this, I'm really just rotating a door, so I didn't dive too much into this desired location. But I'm getting that float, rotate, transform here. Float from Metasound. This is that wind strength parameter I mentioned right here. And we're setting a relative location and rotation based off of that. This way I'm able to start the door, move it forward, pause the door, and then move it back into place. All of that float information is being handled in this Metasound, so the door is only moving when there is sound to accompany it. Here, let me go back over to the door. I'll hit play. We can see what it sounds like in engine just about that. And there we go. That's a really, really cool system that gives me the ability to both add ambience on the level of audio. We have this current loop that is always playing, but we also have the ambience of the door moving on its own. This polar sci-fi facility is very broken apart. Things are falling, things are broken, there's giant holes in the wall everywhere. So that helps add to the ambience and the ambiance. All right, moving on. Soundscape system. So the root of the soundscape system is that it makes it possible for you to spawn sounds around the player based on gameplay tasks. So the way I'm working with this is I'm creating a box, a sphere, and a capsule. And these are all used in Collision to set specific gameplay tags that will go on to trigger different soundscapes. So if I go back into my level here, I have a sphere right here. This is used for triggering our outside ambience. I have a different soundscape collision box for each of my halls in here. So if I would slide on in here, you can see I have this one right here. This is a capsule. The space is very capsule shaped, so it kind of lended itself to use the capsule shape. And then this space right in here, this is using a box collision, if I could find it. Here it is. This is using a box collision. So when you enter it, you're spawning that next soundscape, that next palette of sounds. And then over here we have the third and the final one, a little bit of a smaller box. But over top of all of this, we also have this over-encompassing interior box. So while we're moving inside of here, we always have two different ambient fields loaded. Generic interior soundscape, as well as a specified soundscape for each of these different zones. If you're interested in looking into more of what is happening with these soundscapes, I'd strongly suggest looking at Dan Reynolds' YouTube videos on the subject. I believe he is the one who created it in the first place. Very, very smart man. I'll link it in the comments below. One more thing I want to touch on before I end the video is this fluorescent light bulb. This blinks, and I showed it off a little bit at the first, but it's been a little bit. So I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to play again. Just let this run for a second. So as you can see, there's three things going on here. There's the hum of the light, there's the blink, and then there's the absence of sound. So if I were to open up this light flicker, hit play here, see we have a few things going on. This is using one of those, that similar bool to what we were using with the VFX earlier. So that bool switches the hum on and then off, so we get this blinking sound. But then in the blueprint, I go over to our blueprint here, I'm using that bool to control our light intensity. So when the light is flicked off and there's no hum, the light itself is off. that we were able to add more of that ambience and the ambience to a space at the same time, which is very, very handy. One more cool thing is I created this actor component to work as a really quick to grab blueprint for me. So usually what I've done with footprints in the past is I just added into the blueprint for the player character. But as an actor component, I can just drag this into any Unreal project, make a few adjustments here and there based on whatever needs are needed, based off what layers we're stepping on. And that makes it possible for me to quickly add footsteps to anything without having to recreate the wheel each time I dive into creating new sounds. I also have a very handy debug tool here. In my experience, a good debug tool is worth its weight in gold. I know this blueprint doesn't really weigh much, but that's besides the point. Anyways, thank you all for taking time to listen to this video today. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'll definitely take the time to answer them. Looking forward to sharing more things with Sound and Unreal 5.3 in the future. Thank you so much.